And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another program from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. It is finally Friday, my friends. Can you believe it? I mean, it feels like we've been at this for, I don't know, a solid 2 weeks. But no, it is not true. It's only been 4 days. But it is Friday, which means it's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends. It's Open Line Friday. This is the day where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. I see normally during the week, if I have the phone lines open, you kind of have to be on the same page with me. But not on Friday. On Friday, it's totally up to you. And if you want to call in, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989. It's right down here. 307-374-8989 is the number to get me. So whatever you want to talk about, whatever's on your mind, if you call in, we'll talk about it. But let's see here. But there's a lot going on, though you wouldn't know it if you just paid attention to the drivel pages in the Wyoming media. There's forums going on all over the place, different summer events happening. There's lots to do. And last night I went to an event here in Sheridan called Third Thursday. Third Thursday of every month, they block off Main Street, and there's all sorts of vendors and. During election year, there's wannabe politicians running all over the place, as there were last night. And I talked to all of them that I think were there. Got an interview lined up with Chad Auer. He's running for the superintendent of public instruction position. And I talked to Robert Short. We're going to have an interview with him. He's running for Secretary of State, so we'll talk to him in the very near future. But one thing was very apparent. There is a segment of the wannabe politicians, and by the way, I don't mean wannabe politician derisively. I mean that you're not elected right now, or maybe you are and you're running for re-election, but you're aspiring to be a politician. Your desire is it to be in government in elective office. Ergo, wannabe politician. But one theme that has emerged out of this campaign season, already emerged, is there is a segment of the wannabe politicians that think that they don't have to show up, or at least that's how they're treating voters. The first indication we got from that was on Monday, it was on Tuesday rather, after the Campbell County Republican women held their debate over in July. There was a whole bunch of those wannabe politicians that didn't show up. And the question is, why not? Why didn't they show up? Why didn't they want to debate? Well, because they don't want to be asked hard questions, and they've been told by somebody in their campaign or, one of their advisors or what have you, that they don't have to show up, which is, I guess you don't have to. I mean, if you don't want to debate, you don't want to talk to your constituents and you don't want to convince people, I suppose there's no law that says that you have to show up or that you have to do interviews, by the way. But there's a couple of politicians, some of them Gillette now, some of them in Sheridan, that think that they can just ignore one segment of the voting public. Anyway, I was talking to one candidate last night, Micah Sturdivant. She's running for House 29. We're gonna talk a lot more about her later. Not on this program, but probably next week. But I had a brief conversation with her, which is recorded, by the way. And she says, well, I'm just too busy, David. I'm just too busy to come on your program. To which I replied, oh, come on. It's only 30 minutes. And then she kind of giggles and she says, well, I'm just not going to come on the program. And I said, well, you're running for House 29. And most of and you're running as a Republican in House 29. And I told her most of the Republicans in House 29 listen to my program. So don't you think that would be that would be a good thing to do? And she just said, well, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do it. Like a petulant little child. And then there's Susan Bigelow, who is running for House 51. She told me she wasn't coming on the program either and said she's going to spend her time attending events and talking to her constituents. To which I also replied, the vast majority of House 51 is, they're Republican, and the majority of those listen to this program. And so, maybe that might be a good thing. And she just said no. And by the way, and wait until you see, I think I've got a video of this, but wait until you see her attitude when she was talking to me. But neither of them think that it's an important thing to talk to constituents. They just think they can slide by and win the election without. But I think that it speaks to a deeper problem. And that is politicians that just think that they don't have to answer hard questions. Because I'll be honest, I mean, this is not an easy interview to be on this program. I'm opinionated and I'm pretty well informed. And so I try to ask the hard questions. And to the best of my ability, when a politician gives me kind of a bullcrap answer, I try to dial in on it and say, now, wait a minute, you didn't answer the question. Let me give you an example. When I had Jillian Balow on the program, the twice elected former state superintendent of public instruction, who is now running for Congress, I asked her the point blank question that I think most people should be asking. Hey, Jillian, so the last time you were elected, you quit and you took another job elsewhere. So why should Wyoming voters vote for you again? Why should they do that? And she kind of, circumnavigated every question in her head, trying to avoid it. And I gave her time to meander around. And finally, I said, now, with all due respect, you didn't answer my question. Why should we vote for you? And she tried, and I don't really think she answered that question either. But at the just an example of what I try to do. If you listen to just about every interview, you'll probably hear something to that effect. And so some people don't like to be challenged. And there's only one reason for that. And generally speaking, it's because they haven't learned how to defend their positions. Because we live in a society that functions, well, it doesn't function this way, but people think that it functions on feelings, that it doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter that you have a string of logic to back up the things that you believe. It doesn't matter if what you believe lines up with the majority of your constituents. The only thing that matters is how you feel about it. And when you're questioned about that, there's no really real response to it. About the only thing that you can say is, well, I just feel that way, which it's not true either. And this is becoming one of my pet peeves, by the way. You ever run into people and you're having a conversation and they say, well, I feel that the Texas Rangers, or this probably doesn't come up in your conversations, but it does in mine. I feel that the Texas Rangers are not a good baseball team this year. No, you don't feel that. You think that. You see, we have replaced the word think with the word feel. Think means you actually have to go through the motions and figure out if something makes sense in your head. Feelings are irrational. They're emotional. There's generally no logic backing them up. And that, my friends, is why a lot of people don't want to come on this program, because they have to answer hard questions. Now, one of them, I'm not going to give her a pass because I think it's bullcrap, but one of them that we'll give a minor pass to is Melissa Butcher in Senate 21. Now, she's running against Agent 29, and I understand her trepidation. This one, you got to understand, man. She's running against Agent 29, who happens to be my producer. Now, as you've noticed, he's not my producer this week, and he's probably not going to be here next week. And so as I told Ms. Butcher, I said, well, that doesn't really play into it. It's my show, and we'll do the interview wherever you want. And she's like, well, the place doesn't matter. And I said, actually, it kind of does, because if it's not in the studio, then Ken's not going to be there. And I said, if you think somehow that I'm not fair in an interview, I told her, go listen to the Gail Simmons interview. I said, you're tight with her, so you go listen to that interview and then tell me if I didn't deal fairly with her. I think the answer is yes, of course I did. Did I ask her hard questions? Yes. Did I demand an answer? Yes. But that's what politicians have to do. Because the truth is, you get to the Wyoming House or the Senate, and you don't get to shy away from questions you feel are uncomfortable or that you don't want to answer. You got to stand up there and vote. And the record of your vote is there on the website for all to see. And by the time you've actually taken that vote, probably a couple hours, there's going to be half a dozen websites that are already tracking it. So you don't get to shy away from those things. And the other reason why some of these politicians, and this is where, none of them get a pass, the reason why they don't want to answer hard questions is because they will be held accountable to them. Now, if you look at Micah Sturdivant's campaign mailer, and I should have brought it in the studio with me. She's for crazy things like government-run healthcare. I hate to break it to you, Micah, that is not a Republican thing, nor has it ever been. And so one of the reasons why she won't come on the program is she knows that I will ask her about that. Hey, Micah, so explain to me how this is a Republican idea, how we should have government-run healthcare. By the way, what is the role of government? Well, she's not going to come on the program, or so she says. But it's also a matter of cowardice, my friends, that you do not want to be challenged on the things that you believe, and you just think that people should vote for you just by virtue of you being you. It is, my friends, I have to tell you, it is a load of bullcrap, and it's a complete disservice to voters, because whether or not you agree with or let me put this another way. Whether or not somebody votes for you, if you win, you end up representing them. And so to Melissa Butcher, Micah Sturdivant, if you think that you're going to be my representative or my senator and I'm going to give you a pass, you are dead wrong, ladies. Because if you're, and you can ask Bo Beitman, you can even ask Agent 29 if you want. If you're my representative, you get to talk to me. And if you don't want to come on the program, that's fine. I'll show up at your campaign event. I'll drive down to the Capitol. I'll make sure that you talk to me, which, by the way, is what all of us should do. We should all demand that the people that represent us respond to our concerns. Now, I'll admit that there are some members of some of our colleagues, some of the people we all probably know, that are a little bit incessant. And they, you can answer one question, and they will continually ask another one and another one and another one. And every chance to get in front of you is a speech. I get it. Those people are hard to deal with, but you're the one that signed up or is signing up for the job to represent those people. And so you don't have a right to ignore a segment of your voting population. And so, by the way, Susan Bigelow, Micah Sturdivant, Melissa Butcher, the offer's still open. Come on the program. You should, because you're doing an incredible disservice to your constituents. Now, if you read the drivel pages of the Cowpie, I kind of like that name. I think that's. Oh, by the way, I totally forgot to tell you what we're going to do on today's program. Besides Open Line Friday, that is. So at 9 o'clock, we're going to talk to Representative Jeanette Ward from Casper. She's running against, I think it's for House 58. I think that's the district. But anyway, she's running against Julie Jarvis in Casper, and we're going to talk to her at 9 o'clock. Always a pleasure having Representative Ward on the show. Oh, and here's another oddity that I keep. If you were a member of the House of Representatives or the Wyoming Senate, it's actually a Wyoming law that you get to use that title, Representative Jeanette Ward or Senator Dave Kinski. I know, weird Wyoming law thing. But anyway, back on topic. Speaking of people that don't show up, Doug Moore over in Gillette. Now, see, Douglas is running against John Bear. And the way the media paints it, the way Claire McFarland in the Cowpie paints it, oh, Representative Bear, you ought to be very, very worried. You should be very worried because you actually have an opponent. To the Cowpie, and I quote, John Bear, one of the most powerful members of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, has a GOP challenger for his Gillette House district. Quote, I don't see myself being a career politician, said Douglas Moore. I am the only conservative in the race, countered Bear. Now, there is no question that John Bear is a conservative. You can look at his voting record. He's been on the program numerous times. There's no question about that. Now, McFarland continues, John Bear, one of the most prominent members of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, has a primary election opponent. Oh, no. Whatever will he do? Doug Moore told the Cowboy State Daily, weird. So Doug Moore can respond to the Cowpie, but he can't be bothered with showing up at a Republican debate. That's right. Doug Moore was one of the people over in Gillette that did not attend the the Campbell County Republican women debates. By the way, the ladies over in Campbell County have been doing a bang-up job holding debates. I don't know if I like the format or, I would definitely do things differently. But they've been doing a heck of a job, and I appreciate the effort trying to get as many politicians in front of voters as possible. Because, that's the whole point in doing this, is to get the wannabe politician in front of voters so that you can make a decision one way or another. Well, Douglas, he is among the people that thinks that he doesn't have to show up, that he doesn't have to answer hard questions, that he can just slide by the scum of his teeth. Moore, 55, is a business owner and a transportation manager for 2 coal mining companies. Bear also owns local businesses, and is a Navy veteran. Both men are Republicans who live in Gillette, and both tout strong favor toward the coal industry and conservative ideals. Each is married and has grown children. As for what distinguishes them from another, Moore said, loyalty to Wyoming. That is the main thing, as if the implication being, of course, that John Bear is not. And this is how the drive-bys in the Wyoming media write this stuff. Quote, I'm not going to make a big name for myself, he said. I don't see myself being a career politician that's going to climb the ladder and end up in Washington, D.C. someday. I'm a local kid that grew up here, and I want to make sure my community is taken care of, and Wyoming in general. That's important to me. Bear, in his own Thursday interview, countered that the rebuttal to those statements is, quote, the proof is in the pudding. I've had the opportunities to go for higher office, and I've declined, Bear said. I'm already fighting for Wyoming and have the most conservative record possible. And I think the only person that probably ranks higher than Representative Bear is Agent 29. And we continue here. The Wyoming Freedom Caucus is a populist-leaning group of Republicans in the state house that has backed property tax cuts, pro-life legislation, and reworking of the funding model for K-12 public schools and other measures. Oh, no. Sounds terrible. Why would anybody not want to vote for that? The pro-life legislation is a mixed bag. Those bills are generally popular among Freedom Caucus members and non-Freedom Caucus Republicans. Keep in mind that it was just Claire McFarland's article yesterday that said that if you're a conservative, you line up with the Freedom Caucus. Don't forget that. Let's see here. Moore told the Cow Pie that he's very conservative and that he will not join the Freedom Caucus because he believes the group's members get directions from its national umbrella group, the State Freedom Caucus Network. Bear had inadvertently countered Moore's point in a Thursday email about his bid. Quote, my family and friends are the primary reason that I wish to serve the people of Campbell County. Okay, so this is a reoccurring theme among many of the Redcoats, that the members of the Freedom Caucus get their marching orders from a D.C. overlord, and they're told minute by minute how to vote. It's not true, my friends. I've interviewed the guy that runs the State Freedom Caucus Network. His name is Andy Roth. I actually asked him if he was the D.C. overlord telling people how to vote. The truth is, they don't. And try to, as Representative Lucas said yesterday, I would like to meet the person that thinks they can tell Ann Lucas how to vote. I would just love to meet them because they're an idiot. Or Agent 29 or any of the rest of them. It's just not true, my friends. And, I don't know. And here's the problem with it. Because the argument forces you to defend a negative. Prove to me that you're not doing these things. It's the classic loaded question. When's the last time you were beating your wife? There's no good answer to that question. Similarly, prove to me that you're not, receiving messages from their DC overlords. Now, the truth is that the members of the House of Representatives get together as a group and discuss legislation. I got news for you, Douglas Moore and Ken Roberts and the rest of them. The liberals do that too. How do you think they all end up voting the same? You think it's just by coincidence? What about the Wyoming caucus, who openly said on the floor of the Wyoming House, hey, the Wyoming caucus is going to meet down at the Met after, and we're going to discuss some legislation. Both sides do it. A caucus is nothing more than a group of people that get together who happen to be like-minded and discuss legislation. That's all that it is. It is not some omnipresent group that sends out, subliminal messages or, telekinesis messages from high above or through text messages. It's an idiotic argument. And if you're the one making it, you're saying, don't vote for this guy. He gets text messages from somebody in Washington, D.C. Well, that doesn't say anything about the record. It doesn't say anything about voting. It doesn't even, it's not even true. And so, I don't know what more to say about it, except if you're the one making that argument, you're a coward because you're not willing to engage in the actual issues and talk it over. Let's take one of the big ones, recalibration. And we'll hit Representative Ward with this when she comes on the program. But the recalibration bill, all the liberals say, this terrible bill, which they were a part of, by the way. The recalibration bill was voted on out of committee. I think it was almost unanimously. Maybe there was one vote against it. Maybe it was a Democrat. But the recalibration bill. So we have heard for years that we're not funding teachers. Teachers do not make enough money. And so the legislature passed, I believe it was House Bill 50 in 2025, saying, okay, well, we will give all school staff an 8.5% raise. There was only one school district in the entire state that actually gave that raise, and that was Sublette County. Good job, guys. I generally don't agree with many of the people that are on school boards, but you did a good job. But it was only them. Everybody else did not come anywhere close to that 8.5% raise. And then the Wyoming Education Association and the School Board Association again claimed, well, teachers aren't being paid enough. Well, wait a minute. We gave you millions of dollars to pay your teachers, and you spent it on stupid stuff like basketballs and soccer goals. That has nothing to do with the classroom. And so the recalibration bill says, all right, you're not going to do this on your own, so money that is meant for the classroom stays in the classroom, period. You don't get to spend it elsewhere. Well, now the argument is, now we're going to have to cut activities because you did that. So if you're willing to engage in the argument, you will have to admit that if that is the problem now, it means that you were taking money meant for the classroom and you were spending it on activities. Instead of buying school books, you were buying football pads. Instead of buying computers, you were buying soccer goals. Instead of buying paper and pens to write down, take exams, or buying calculators or whatever they spend money in the classroom on, you were spending it on hotel rooms. Which is, I'm not saying anything wrong, that anything is wrong with activities, but they are not more important than what happens in the classroom. And so the problem with a lot of these folks, typically the ones that are involved in education, Julie Jarvis is a really good example. Though I haven't heard her make this argument because I think she knows better. But if you're making that argument, you certainly don't want to be in the middle of an interview and somebody say, so tell me what's wrong with the recalibration bill. Because you don't want to be on the record. You don't want to be recorded having that. But it is a tremendous amount of cowardice not showing up. And Doug Moore, by the way, I'm going to send you an invite. I think I may have already done that. Hold on. I'll tell you the list of redcoats that I've sent emails to that have not responded. Let's see here. Ryan Koltiska, Melissa Butcher, Micah Sturdivant, Susan Bigelow, and actually, that's not true. The only person that did respond to that latest round of emails was David Hill out of Park County. We're going to talk to him next week. But the point is, my friends, that if you are trying to avoid voters, if you are trying to avoid an interview and you're only going to talk to friendly media outlets, you, my friend, are kind of acting like a coward. And, if you think that you're going to get away with that down in Cheyenne, you are sadly mistaken. So moving to the end of the cow pie piece, and this is an uncharacteristically short article by Claire McFarland. Let's see here. Here we go. Bears a former Freedom Caucus chairman and remains one of the most prominent voices and one of its most powerful members. He's the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. Let's see here. Here we go. During Bear's chairmanship of the Appropriations Committee ahead of the past session, he was a consistent budget hawk, which sometimes garnered controversy. During the session, Bear broke ranks to vote against several of his Freedom Caucus colleagues in opposing what he has called corporate welfare tax breaks or grants for large businesses. That's the energy dominance bill, the really, really dumb one where we give hundreds of millions of dollars to companies that already have billions in the bank. That was Dennis Beitman that did that one. But anyway, so Doug Moore, be expecting an invitation from me. Don't worry, I have no illusions that you'll actually say yes, though I hope that you do. All right, well, we're pretty close to the bottom of the hour, so let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the program. Don't go anywhere. Jeanette Ward is coming up at 9 o'clock. She's always a lot of fun to talk to. And so we'll do that at the top of the hour. It's Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics, 307-374-8989. We'll be back in a minute. Are you sick to death of being told what to think? Maybe you don't even realize that it's happening. Freedom Caucus bad, big spending, big government, liberal, Republican good. Conservatives are bad and they want to starve little children. I have heard it all, my friends. We are way past the time when the news was just the news, if it ever was. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a news platform that was at least honest about what they were telling you? News on the news page, opinion on the opinion page. That's exactly what the Open Range Record is. Go to the website, openrangerecord.com. News, analysis, opinion, and investigative journalism. One more time, that website is openrangerecord.com. You can listen and watch Cowboy State Politics live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pay attention to all that other block-headed, Borg-like so-called news if you want. But if you want to get the real story, watch Cowboy State Politics live. And now, back to the program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It's Open Line Friday, my friends. Go ahead and give me a call if you want to. The number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. That's the number that will get you directly to me this morning. And by the way, if you are, if you're listening and you're a legislator or a former legislator, why don't you give me a call and weigh in on the whole debate thing? Or by the way, or if you've held one of these debates that people don't show up to, go ahead and give me a call too, and let's talk about it. 307-374-8989, and let me know in the comments too what you think of these no-show. And and here's the thing, right? It's not like I want to scare these people away. I want them to come on the program. I want to have a conversation with them. And it's it just irritates the crap out of me when these people just shy away from interviews, or when the media just doesn't even ask for interviews. See, I don't care who you are. Come on the show. I guarantee, like, some of the people I've got lined up for an interview, we're not going to agree on a whole bunch of stuff, but at least we're going to talk about it. All right, so let's move to one of my favorite topics: things that go boom. From the Cowboy, firearms expert says Supreme Court marijuana case is important for Wyoming gun owners. George McSorry, who, by the way, I did an interview with George McSorry a couple of years ago. I drove down to Laramie to sit down in his office with him. He is probably the foremost expert on the Second Amendment in the entire country. He's written extensively, and if you just search his name on YouTube, you can find him pretty easily. But he is a firearms expert, and he says that the Supreme Court's Thursday opinion upholding a marijuana user's right to keep a gun is important for Wyoming. The case is ultimately about whether the government can take away a constitutional right. And the quick answer to that is no, they can't. And you can't even give up your constitutional rights. I don't know if you know that or not, but you can't sign them away. You can acknowledge that you've been advised of your rights, but they can't be taken away from you. So, for example, if you're ever arrested or detained and they read you your Miranda rights, your right to an attorney, right to remain silent, all that stuff, and you say, you know what, I think I want an attorney right now, which is what you should do anyway. Just a piece of advice. The questioning stops, and they cannot continue to badger you once you have asked for an attorney. That's your constitutional right to be represented by competent counsel. Some of us don't choose competent counsel, which is why you have a right to an appeal. But those things cannot be taken away from you. Similarly, your right to keep and bear arms is one of those things. You just can't be taken away from you. Now, we do have laws, like if you're a felon, I disagree with that law, by the way. I think if you have served your sentence, your penance, whatever it is, you've gone to prison, served your time, and you're out, and you're not on paper anymore, I don't think it's right that we should continue to punish those people from once they've served their sentence. But anyway, here's what the Cowboy article says. A federal law known under its short statutory code of 922G3 bars habitual users of unlawful drugs from knowingly possessing guns. People convicted under that law can face 15 years in prison and lose their rights to carry a firearm. This is the same one that they prosecuted Hunter Biden over. Now, when you go to buy a firearm, they're going to hand you a form, and you fill it out. And one of the questions is, are you addicted to drugs? And if you lie on that form, it's a felony. So just a couple of things here before we get into the meat of the article. First, the laws are the law. Whether or not we agree with them right now, it's still the law. In our system, if you think that a law is unconstitutional or you think it's wrong or bad or something, you have an avenue to challenge that law. And the way that you do that is that you get arrested or prosecuted for violating it, and then you appeal it. And then you take it, you run it through the court system, and that's, in our system, that's how you challenge the laws. And whether or not we agree with a law that's been passed and signed by either the governor or the president, it's still the law. Okay, so even though we may disagree that somebody who smokes dope, even if we disagree with the law that they should be prohibited, that they're prohibited from keeping firearms, that doesn't take away the fact that it is the law right now. And so when Hunter Biden went and bought that gun and he lied on the form, that's the felony that he was prosecuted with, lying on that federal firearms form. Now, whether we disagree with that or not is another matter entirely, which is the one that was taken up by the Supreme Court. In the case of a Texan with dual Pakistani U.S. citizenship, some marijuana in his house, and every other day habit of using and a gun, the government can't prosecute him without violating his Second Amendment rights, says a unanimous decision Thursday written by Justice Neil Gorsuch. So it was unanimous, all 9 justices. The opinion upholds an earlier Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that also dismisses the Trump administration's arguments in the defense of the drug user gun ban. The opinion should matter to Wyomingites as well as other Americans, firearms expert George McSorley told the Cowboy, quote, "We should care here in Wyoming because the case is ultimately about whether or not the government can take away a constitutional right, including one we care about a lot in here, based on a broad label rather than proven dangerousness." The court said it can't. So in other words, when you boil the case down, the ruling says that the government can't take an entire group of people and just say they're dangerous. That's not how our system works, right? You are charged individually. You can't be charged as a group. You have to commit a crime. Now, if you're involved in a group that routinely commits crimes like organized crime or something, and you're caught up in it, well, you might be charged, but they still have to prove that you personally committed a crime. Now, let me give you another example. You remember, I guess it was a couple of years ago now, when the Biden administration was investigating parents who spoke out at school board meetings. You remember that whole thing? Well, this is the same type of ruling. Now, let me just play for you Ted Cruz when he was talking to then Attorney General Merrick Garland about that little case. And it's a little bit long, but it's worth listening to. And I find it a little bit entertaining. So here's that video with Ted Cruz.
On Wednesday, September 29th, the National School Board Association wrote a letter to the president asking the president to use the Department of Justice to target parents that were upset at critical race theory, that were upset at mask mandates in schools, to target them as domestic terrorists. On the face of the letter was in repeated consultation with the White House, in explicit political consultation with the White House. That was on Wednesday, September 29th. 5 days later, on Monday, so right after the weekend, boom, you pop out a memo, giving them exactly what they want. Now, by the way, I understand that. In politics, that happens all the time. An important special interest wants something. Sir, yes, sir. We're going to listen to them. Let me ask you something, General Garland. In the letter, which you told the House of Representatives was the basis for this abusive memo targeting parents, how many incidents are cited in that memo?
I have to look back through the memo. I can't count it.
You don't know. How many of them were violent?
Again, the general report.
How many of them were violent? Do you know?
I don't know.
You don't know. And there's a reason you don't know. Because you didn't care, and nobody in your office cared to find out. I did a quick count just sitting here. During this hearing, I counted 20 incidents cited. Of the 20, 15 on their face are nonviolent. They involve things like insults. They involve a Nazi salute. That's one of the examples. My God, a parent did a Nazi salute at a school board because he thought the policies were oppressive. General Garland is doing a Nazi salute at an elected official. Is that protected by the First Amendment?
Yes, it is.
Okay. 15 of the 20 on the face of it are not violent. They're not threats of violence. They're parents who are unhappy. Yet, miraculously, when you write a memo, the opening line of your memo, in recent months, there has been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence. You know what? You didn't look, and nobody on your staff looked. Did you even look up the 20 instances?
As I testified, the decision to send a memo is for an assessment.
Did you look up the 20 instances?
I did not read.
Did anyone on your staff look them up?
I don't know the answer, but it's not
but
only
of
the
course
memo.
you don't. In general, there's a reason. Look, you started your career.
All right. We might listen to the rest of it, but his point is clear, right? Most of those parents at school board meetings, and you may have been at a school board meeting that got a little raucous. During COVID, there were a lot of them. There was one here in Sheridan during COVID that I went to, and we were escorted out by police. So this is not something that, is unusual. If you've been around a Rock Springs School District meeting, those have gotten a little bit raucous. And across the entire state. This is not something that is unusual. When it involves somebody's children, parents get pretty fired up, as they should. But that is their First Amendment right. The government does not have the right or should they have the legal ability to label that entire group of people as dangerous. Oh, these right-winger parents, they're dangerous. We have to prosecute them all. The government doesn't get to do that. And so that same principle is in this ruling, that the government does not get to take an entire group of people and say that they're dangerous. We have to prove that an individual is dangerous. And that is one of the key differences in our Constitution than with any of the others. In America, we value value is the wrong word. We cherish individual liberties. It is the individual that is important. We don't focus on groups, right? A lot of leftists, we're in the middle of June. And by the way, I've got a story coming up. It's actually next on the stack of stuff. Maybe we'll get to it before the interview. But it all Pride Month, right? And there's an entire group of people that are saying you have to recognize our group rights. Groups don't have rights, ladies and gentlemen. Individuals have rights. Now, we do have laws that say you can't discriminate against an entire group of people. That's the same thing, right? You can't just label an entire group of people as dangerous or as anything else. In this country, it is individual liberties. It is not group rights. There's no such thing as group rights. And so, with this firearms ruling, the government can't say that all people that use marijuana are dangerous. The truth is that I've known several potheads in my life. I'm sure you have too. The likelihood that they want to do anything except sit on the couch and eat Cheetos is pretty low. I mean, most potheads just want to sit around and fend off their munchies, and instead of going to the range or whatever. But it doesn't really matter whether we characterize an entire group of people that way. The government cannot do that. It's individual liberties. It's individual crimes. You don't get prosecuted for what a group does. It's what you do. And that is essentially what this ruling is saying, and that it applies to the Second Amendment and it applies to all of the others. The case isn't about marijuana, but about the government's ability to hinge one's rights on its own broad characterizations of certain people as dangerous, added McSorry. He emphasized that guns are part of an ordinary life in Wyoming, from self-defense to hunting, ranching, protection in remote areas. Most people, a lot of people in Wyoming, I would say probably a majority, carry a gun every day on them all the time. It's part of our ordinary life. And so to say that an entire group of people, whether it's pot users or whether it's white people or African Americans or gay or straight or whatever, the government doesn't get to say this entire group of people is dangerous. Now, let me read to you what the Wyoming Constitution says about it. And I think that it is more specific but it talks about the right to bear arms in a different way. This is Article 1, Section 24 of the Wyoming Constitution. It says the right of citizens to bear arms in defense of themselves and of the state shall not be denied. Period. So the U.S. Constitution says it shall not be infringed. Our Constitution says it shall not be denied, which means that you can't take an entire group of people, drug users or whatever, and say that they're dangerous. Now, so the article or the not the article, the decision was tempered a little bit. It was constrained, and listen to this because it's important. Quote, once the government can disarm people simply by declaring a category dangerous, the same reasoning could be invoked against other common conduct said to correlate with risk, including something as ordinary as repeated speeding or the school board thing that I mentioned. However, the government did, or the Supreme Court did say that, and let me just find it here because I know it's in here. They did cover, let's see here. Okay, anyway, but we'll have to go read the ruling. But essentially, it says that those laws that restrict firearm ownership of other categories, they're not discussing those. It's just categorizing an entire group of people. So it doesn't do away with the felon in possession of a firearm laws. It doesn't do away with any of those. It's categorizing of a whole group. And so what you're going to see from this Supreme Court ruling is it will be applied elsewhere to school board meetings, to city council meetings, to people who play polo or whatever. The government cannot take away your rights based upon, your membership in a group, or whatever it happens to be. Right? We focus on individual crimes, individual liberties, and you don't get prosecuted for being part of a group. So here's an interesting one for you from Breitbart News. And this one just warms my heart. You all know the story of what prompted me to get interested in the Texas Rangers. And if you're new to the program, let me just quickly tell you about that. The lovely Christine and I were in Dallas for a hair symposium. And I said, hey, let's find out if the Texas Rangers are in town. And they were, and so we went and bought tickets, and we went to a game, and we walked into the stadium. And it's in the middle of June. This was, a few years ago during 2023. But it's in the middle of June, and I noticed that there aren't any rainbow flags anywhere. And while we walked up, we get all the way in the stadium, kind of close to where our seats are. And we walked up to the beer stand, and I said, well, I'd like 2 non-alcoholic beers, and the gal pushed these 2 Bud Zeros next up to me. And it was right when all that Bud Light stuff was going on. And so I must have snarled or something at the Budweiser thing. And she says, hey, this is Texas Ranger Stadium. We don't do politics here. Do you want a beer or not? And I was like, well, I guess I'll take a beer. And so we go to our seats, and there wasn't any politics in it. It was just baseball. We had so much fun. We sat there for 13 innings. I don't think we got back to the hotel until 11 o'clock at night. But from that point on, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to be a Texas Rangers fan. And this year, the Rangers are the only baseball team that is not participating in any of this stupid pride stuff. I don't understand why we have to have a whole month to recognize what people do in their bedroom. I mean, it's frankly, I don't care, and I don't want to know. I certainly don't want to have it shoved down my throat. But in Pennsylvania, there is a minor league baseball team that forfeited a game when their players refused to wear Pride Night jerseys. Amen, brothers. Amen. And I quote, players on a minor league baseball team in York, Pennsylvania, refused Thursday to comply with an LGBTQZXPWDS messaging, and their game was forfeited. York Revolution canceled the game against the Southern Maryland Blue Crabs due to an issue with players who were supposed to wear Pride jerseys for Pride Night. Several Revolution players refused to wear these jerseys. In a statement announcing the forfeiture, the team said it was, quote, with great disappointment that the York Revolution have issued important changes to our 11th annual Pride Night on Thursday, June 18th. Most significantly, the scheduled game between York and Southern Maryland will not be played, and Pride will still be hosted as a free admission event. Everyone's tickets for the game on Thursday will be treated as a rainout that it can be redeemed for any future game. It continued. Unfortunately, several of our players have refused to wear the scheduled Pride Night jersey, and the club decided that hosting an event is more important than forcing players to wear jerseys they are not comfortable with and playing the game. As a result, and out of respect for the Pride community, blah, 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 blah. Now, this comes on the heels of the San Francisco Giants, Major League Baseball team, putting Bible verses on their baseball caps. Major League Baseball went after them and said, yeah, they didn't like sanction him or anything or fine him or anything like that. But essentially, they issued a statement saying that was against the rules. You know what? We live in America, and here we have the First Amendment, and you shouldn't be forced to wear something that directly contradicts your values. And so the pitcher in question wrote a verse from the book of Genesis on his cap, and he says, look, it's just about God's covenant with us. That's all it's about. But you know what's funny? Major League Baseball didn't say anything about players drawing crosses on their hats after Charlie Kirk was killed. They didn't say anything about that. Or writing the numbers of their colleagues who have had some sort of personal tragedy or personal difficulty. They don't say anything about that. But when it comes to Pride Night, oh, don't you dare threaten Pride Night. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. We don't need a whole month to celebrate your sexual deviancy. I mean, it's just anyway, my friends. Let's see here. You know what? It's a little bit early, but we're going to go ahead and take a break. And because there's a story I want to get to before we talk to Representative Ward. So we'll take a break. And when we come back, I'll hit the story, and then we'll talk to Jeanette Ward from Casper. Back in a minute, my friends. Open line Friday, 307-374-8989 if you want to talk to me. I know that you think it's spring and that the weather is just going to continue to warm up and you don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell. Iceland.
France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. This program, despite what the redcoats that don't want to come on the show don't understand, 60,000 views every month. One of the most popular programs in the entire Cowboy state. Welcome back to the program, my friends. It's Open Line Friday on the show. if there's something on your mind that you want to talk about, or if I'm hitting every nail on the head, I'm fine with that too. But if you want to talk to me, the phone number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Well, in just a minutes away, Jeanette Ward is going to join us on the program. Now, there's a piece in the Oil City News, so news needs to be in quotation marks. The title of it is House District Rematch. Jarvis faces Ward after defeating her in 2024 GOP primary. And listen to the first line. Quote, Representative Julie Jarvis is sticking to her constituent survey strategy for representation, while Ward touts her Freedom Caucus-style views. You see, we got to get in there. That Representative Ward, we think that she's a member of the Freedom Caucus, which she's not anymore. She's not in the House right now. But that has to be out front. She has Freedom Caucus-style views. Now, what the media is trying to tell you is that if you're a conservative, well, then you automatically align with the Freedom Caucus. That you're lock, stock, and barrel, you're down the pipe with them, that's who you are. And I quote let's see here, Freedom Caucus firebrand Jeanette Ward is making a bid to win back the blue-collar Southeast Casper House District that she lost. And this is the second time. And we're only like 4 sentences into this thing. And they've already mentioned that she lost in 2024 to political newcomer and Republican needs to be in quotation marks. Jarvis won the House District primary with 56% of the vote. The winner of this year's primary match will face a Democrat, Luke Colgrove, in the general election in November. Ward moved from Illinois to Wyoming a year before winning the House District 57, which was previously held by Chuck Gray. All right, so let's see here. Jeanette has joined the program, so Jeanette Ward, welcome to the show, my friend. Hello, Jeanette. Okay, Jeanette, we can't hear you, so maybe we got to reconnect or something. Okay, well, Jeanette, you reconnect, and we'll try it again here in just a second. But anyway, so Jarvis hails from Buffalo. She's a longtime reading specialist with more than 25 years in education. She serves as the director of teaching and learning in Natrona County. And I got to tell you, her voting record, it is outrageously Democratic. I mean, we're not even talking about somebody who is in the same political universe as the word Republican. And she's the perfect example of when the media says running as a Republican, though the Oil City News claims that she is a Republican. It's a very, very different thing. But anyway, let's try Jeanette again, and let's see here. So, Jeanette, are you with me? Okay, well, I guess we don't have Ms. Ward, so, all right. So, anyway, we'll continue on with the program. Actually, you know what? Let me send Jeanette a quick message, and we will see if we can get her on the show. You know, live radio, it's always tricky, because you never know what's going to happen. Trier reconnecting again. Okay. So let's see here. Back to the piece. Let's see here. A self-described anti-politician, Jarvis said she entered politics with a mission to bridge whatever she sees as a disconnect between constituents and the people they elect to represent them. Now, if you'll remember, Jeanette Ward, but Julie Jarvis, last time, she said that she was just going to conduct surveys, and that's how she was going to vote. And repeatedly, members of the House chided her and saying, look, this is not how our country works. And it's not. When you are elected to either the Senate or the House, you are a representative of the people. We are a representative republic. We are not a democracy in any way, shape, or form. And so the idea is if voters think that your views and your values line up with theirs, they vote for you. And the idea being that you'll go and represent them to the best of your ability. We're not a democracy. Like, we don't run on mob rule. There's Jeanette. Hey, Jeanette, welcome to the show.
We can hear me.
We can hear you. You cannot hear me?
I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Uh-oh, I don't know what's up. Live radio, isn't it fun? Yeah.
Keep talking if you would.
All right, so you work on it.
You can hear me because my microphone is working.
Yep, we can hear you. We're good there. Okay, so you work on that for a minute.
Like no matter what setting I choose, I can't hear you. And my sound is not muted.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not sure what to do.
Look at the speakers. Go on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Look for the little speaker. Oh, you can't hear me anyway.
Yeah, I know you're trying to give me instruction, but I can't hear you at all. I can see you're trying to talk to me.
All right, let's do this.
I'll try to rejoin.
307-374-8989. Oops. Hold on just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. 307-374-8989. There. Okay. So anyway, I guess my point here is that the Oil City News has never really been an unbiased news source. In fact, I don't even think they're news. It's all opinion. The whole point here is to cast Jeanette Ward as this radical right-wing extremist, and as Julie Jarvis as the reasonable one. But the truth is, like, running your representation based on a survey isn't reasonable at all, in no way, shape, or form. And so, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. All right, let's try this. Okay, so we're going to do this.
Until then, hang out and just listen to the show.
How about this? Jeanette, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Mute your mic.
There's an echo.
Mute the mic.
Yep.
All right. Now can you hear us? Nope. Oh man. Okay. So just try to talk to me on the phone. All right. Tell you what, I'll call you. This is frustrating, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so we're going to do away with this and call back. Can you hear me now, Jeanette? Hello, Jeanette. All right, well, I tell you what, we'll figure this out later, and then we'll get with Jeanette Ward. I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, my friends, the whole point in this entire thing is that if you're going to report the news and you're going to talk about Canada's, you should do it honestly. Now, the first example, we talked about Douglas Moore and John Baer, and, it's the whole thing is trying to paint, Claire McFarland attempts to paint Moore as the conservative, when in reality, they already have a conservative. And here's the other thing, too. If you're actually a conservative, why would you, and you got one in office, why would you run against him? Well, the obvious reason is A, you're not a conservative, and B, you're not going to line up with the votes that he's taken. That would be the only reason why you would run against the current incumbent. And so it's the media trying to push an entire agenda. Oh, that's why. Okay, don't use video calling. All right, just call into the number and forget about video. There, try that. Okay, but the whole point is the media has to paint everybody who is not a conservative as the reasonable one. Now, I had a back and forth on, and I hate talking about this, but so I had a back and forth on Facebook yesterday. And I did an episode, I believe it was yesterday, talking about Ken Roberts over in southwest Wyoming, standing up on the stage and just lying about his opponent. And maybe lying is not the right word, because to lie, you have to know that what you're saying isn't true. And I don't think that he did that. He just repeated a line that's actually been a pretty effective narrative, that the Freedom Caucus takes their orders from D.C., which isn't true at all. And so I just went back and forth with him. And, a lot of this, it's total bullcrap, and it's pushed by the media. All right. So welcome to the program, Jeanette. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
There we go. We got you. Finally.
I am so sorry. I use video calling all day, every day, and I've never had this kind of issue.
Yeah, well, it will never happen to you unless you're going on a live appearance on a program. That's how all these things work.
It's so frustrating.
I know it. All right, so we got it, though. So it's been a while since you've been on the program. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell my audience about yourself?
Well, sure. I moved here in 2021. I came here looking for freedom. I'm running for the second time for Wyoming House District 57. I'm pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-family. I served in 2023 and 2024 in the 67th legislature, and what I promised is how I voted. So I said I was pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-family, and that's how I voted. And those principles remain unchanged today in 2026. In contrast, my opponent for Wyoming House District 57 votes with Democrats roughly 80% of the time, and that's not how she represented herself to voters when she got elected to the 68th legislature. In contrast to me, she's pro-death, anti-freedom, anti-Second Amendment, and anti-woman.
Okay.
So I'm running to change that.
All right. So let's take a couple of those because as you know, I went to high school with Julie. We graduated together, valedictorians, both of us. So I know her pretty well. Let's talk about this anti-Second Amendment vote specifically. Can you give me an example of that?
Yes. So she sometimes waffles, but for the most part is anti-Second Amendment. She voted no, I believe, on the elimination of gun-free zones bill. Okay. All right. That's a good example. I can see her voting against that one. So you're running again. And you said that the issues that you're running on hasn't changed. How has the race changed? Because you're running against an incumbent. You're the person that's challenging Representative Jarvis. Do you see any differences between this race and the one in 2024? Yes, I certainly do. I think that she was successful at hoodwinking voters into believing that she was conservative. But on the House floor, she was anything but. And when I say she voted with Democrats roughly 80% of the time, it's actually a little bit more than that. And she was very clear and did not hide who she was on the floor. In fact, she said things like that homeschoolers are illiterate and let their kids run wild. Yeah, I remember that one. I think just some unbelievable things. Yeah, I think you and I were actually sitting right beside each other when that one came out. And that's, often when you're sitting in the gallery, you hear stuff on the floor and you just turn to the person beside you and you're like, I can't believe I just heard that. Exactly. Yes. Yes, there were a lot of instances like that. And then she spent a lot of time trying to defend the fact that we need to increase property taxes and not decrease them, even though her survey showed that overwhelmingly the constituents wanted property tax relief and reform. And she tried to dismantle and vote against it every time it came up. And in fact, made long speeches about why we should not have property tax relief and reform. All right, well, let's talk about property taxes just for a minute. So we've got a 25% reduction that was passed, was it last year or the year before? Can't remember. But anyway, everybody's getting a 25% reduction. There is a ballot initiative that for 50% reduction. Don't know exactly. I'm pretty sure that one's going to pass. But the big argument against all of that, Jeanette, is that local communities are going to have to cut services. There's a lot of smaller towns that they don't have the business to generate sales tax, and so they really kind of
run everything on direct distributions from the state. So how do you respond to the folks that say, look, all of these property tax reductions are going to cause all these small towns to go bankrupt. They're not going to fund the police. They can't fund fire. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's funny how shall we say, the other side likes to propagandize that, because it's just patently not true. And now we have an organization called Wyoming by the Numbers who has debunked that in detail. And they even have a slide for each of the counties. So, for example, Natrona County has got a whole bunch of money in reserve that they're holding in reserve, which means they could have given it back to taxpayers, but instead they are putting money in their savings accounts instead of into the pockets of the voters. And I just think that's fundamentally dishonest and unfair, and that's not how government should be run.
Okay, so don't you think that cities and towns ought to have reserve, a rainy day fund? What happens if there's a bridge collapse or a road failure or a sinkhole? Don't you think you ought to have some reserves?
Yes, maybe some, but Natrona County's got $207.8 million in surplus. In cash reserves, they have $229.1 million. And I just think that's quite a lot to hold in reserve when that could be in the in the pockets of the taxpayers.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
So I just think it's fundamentally untrue that that services need to suffer. And in fact, I think what they do is they try to make it appear that services are going to suffer, and they'll cut things to make it painful for residents to prove to them, see, hey, guys, you should not have supported or voted for property tax relief. And that's disingenuous.
No, to say the least. And, you mentioned Wyoming by the Numbers, and he does a great job at laying out the differences between the counties and actually what the truth is behind all these, all the property tax measures. And when you do the math, even at a 50% reduction, the most that any county is going to see their budget reduced is 10%. And that's only one of them, and it's Sheridan County. The rest of them, we're not really talking about that big of a reduction in county revenue. And the truth is, like if you just use Buffalo, for example, they give away hundreds of thousands of dollars to nonprofits. Well, if they didn't do that, well, then their whatever reduction in property taxes isn't going to amount to anything at all. They're still going to be, net positive. They wouldn't give our money away.
Yes, correct. And I think that in general, the governments are focused on things that government doesn't belong in, and not focused on things that are the proper role of government. So I think we have a fundamental conflict of visions between, real conservatives and, shall we say, what they like to call themselves, traditional Republicans.
Yeah, redcoats. One in all of them. Okay, so let me switch topics on you real quick. Casper is home to the only official abortion clinic in the state. And we've had, God, I don't know how many bills we've passed trying to protect the life of the unborn and prevent people from killing little babies. And they've all gotten thrown out by the courts. Do you think that the best option to protect little babies is just a constitutional amendment, or do you think we ought to go forward with more legislation? Which one of those do you like, and why?
So I would respond both and. I think we need to do both. It's fundamentally unfair, first of all, that the duly elected legislature passed laws. We were elected by the people. We passed laws, and the governor either signed them or let them become law. And the courts invented a constitutional right that doesn't exist. I mean, this last one was just what? Abortion is fundamentally safe, I think, was how
inherently safe.
Was unbelievable.
Yeah, safe for whom?
So yeah, and I'm also open to the constitutional amendment. I think that the people are predominantly pro-life.
My only trepidation with that is, well, I have two really. First, I doubt very seriously that we could all agree on the right language for the ballot measure to change the Constitution. I really see that as a huge stumbling block. I mean, the House of Representatives is decidedly way more conservative than the Senate. And I see that as a big stumbling block. And then the other problem, I think, is can you imagine the amount of money that will be dumped into this state for that one ballot measure? I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars. We're probably talking tens of millions or more. And the anti-abortion lobby
you're correct.
will absolutely lose their minds. And I mean, if we thought the 2024 election was expensive, we ain't seen nothing yet. I see that as a major problem.
It is a major problem. And isn't it funny how the other side likes to complain about out-of-state money? Yet you and I both know that if that became a ballot measure, you are 100% correct, possibly billions, but certainly tens of millions or hundreds of millions would be spent to make sure that killing babies is going to continue to be a thing in Wyoming.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there is no question in my mind. And I really think that, we've heard a lot of candidates this cycle. Like, just to use one example, I read an article, Ogden Driscoll this morning in an article. He says, we need a constitutional amendment. Well, he's astute enough to know what is going to happen. I really think that the reason why a lot of these, more liberal people are saying, oh, no, we need a constitutional amendment, it's because they know what will happen, that a ton of money will be dumped into the state. And either way it's written, then they'll say, see, voters voted this way. They want abortion, or, it doesn't matter how it's written. They'll use that going forward to say, see, we have to have abortion.
Yeah, I do think that is a possibility. And in some sense, I think that the Lord sometimes gives nations, states, over to the thing that they so want. Oh, you want to murder your babies? Well, have at it.
Yeah, and Lord knows in America we have done a bang up job. We've killed, I think the last number I heard was 64.5 million babies. I mean, just shocking. I mean, in the end, Jeanette, we're all going to have to pay for that. It's not going to be good.
I don't say that's 100%, and I don't say that as an argument. The basic argument is one of science. Life begins at conception, and science knows that.
Yeah.
It's funny how the people who cry, trust the science, don't want to trust the science when it comes to basic issues of life. Life begins at conception. That is what the science teaches us.
Yeah, facts don't matter to the other side. That's for sure. All right, let's get another topic in here. We've seen a lot of data centers popping up all over the place. Where do you land on those? Should we regulate them? Should we just let them be? How do we handle all of these data centers that want to come into the state?
Well, I appreciate that question. I was just asked that last night on my Facebook page, and how I responded was the problem I see with data centers is that we are building a surveillance state. We're building the infrastructure for a surveillance state, and I am fundamentally opposed to that. And that's aside from the water and electricity issues. So, I've been to these town hall meetings where they're talking. There was one discussed in Casper, and my question is to those who are going to build this data center: can you promise me that the data center will not be used to further surveillance? And they sort of laughed at me, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not very well informed." That's in fact not true. The point the point of data centers is not because people want to make puppies and kittens videos. The point is that vast amounts of data are needed for recording all the cameras and videos that these folks want to put up in our dystopian society. That is the point of these data centers, and that I have a fundamental problem with.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. If just kind of all things being equal here, if a data center company jumps through all the hoops that all businesses have to go to, if they're not given government subsidies, if they've got the water question taken care of, and we've got enough power, so if they're all on the same playing field as every other business, should we leave them alone, or should we enact legislation?
So I would like to see legislation that guarantees that the data centers in Wyoming cannot be used to further surveillance. That is my number one concern. And the secondary issues about water and electricity, they can promise that, it's a closed system. But if you look into the details and the research regarding data centers, the closed system argument doesn't hold water, to use a pun. It's never a closed system, really.
Okay, but I think my question was, if everything's on the up and up, right? That they're following all the rules, that they've handled the water, that they've handled the electricity issue, would you be for them or against them? And I realize that's kind of an unfair question because we don't know the answers to a lot of those, but I'm asking in theory.
So if they could guarantee that it's not going to be used for surveillance, and they've answered the water and electricity question, then yes.
Okay.
I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So let's see here. What time we got? Well, we took a little bit of time getting you on here, so we'll go a few more minutes anyway. So one of the other issues I think that I've heard a lot about in public forums and these so-called debates, and it's always kind of like the undertone, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. But a big issue in the last session, and I'm pretty sure you were sitting there during this debate, was over direct distributions to local communities. Now we've written that into law now. And there's a guaranteed direct distribution. But I think in the next session, that's probably going to come up again. So should the state, that is the state government, be funding local communities? And if so, how much?
So I presume you're talking about the direct distribution that was supposed to be used for teacher salaries? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, no, the direct distribution. So cities and towns are funded in the state largely on sales tax. And so all the sales tax gets collected and it goes into one big pot, and then it gets divvied up across the state. And historically, before last session, it was, it might vary year to year. Well, we passed a statute last session where that direct distribution to local communities, not necessarily education, but it's just to, municipalities, is now guaranteed. Do you think that towns and communities ought to, get a direct distribution, or should it be more? Should it be less? I guess what I'm asking is, how much reliance should local communities have on the state? If that's
ideally,
clear as mud.
Ideally, I'd like to see local communities raise their own tax revenue so that they don't have to rely on the state to do that. But, if those communities have collected sales tax, it's only fair that they should receive some of that back.
Okay.
Or
all right.
all of it, for that matter, whatever they've collected in their community.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your answer on that one. So can you give me your top three things? I know you told me that you're running on the same things that you were last time, but if you're successful, what are some pieces of legislation that you would like to see taken up by the next legislature? What are you going to propose?
Well, my number one priority, and this matters a lot to my constituents too, I've been a champion of medical freedom bills. And so far, none of them have been passed. And we've been trying to do this since 2021. It is shocking to me how much power the medical cartel has in the state of Wyoming. Never, ever should it be the case that you have to wear a mask, get vaccinated, or get tested to participate in society. And so I will be reintroducing those medical freedom bills.
Okay, I think those are super important.
In addition to the pro-life, pro-freedom, pro-Second Amendment, and pro-family, I think that we definitely need to look at the pro-life issue and do the two-pronged approach there. Keep passing laws and keep making them overturn them in the courts, if that's what their strategy is going to be. You know, one that didn't pass that I'd like to see passed is informed consent. How can you argue against informed consent? Like if a woman is going to take the life of her unborn child, she ought to at least look at that life and see an ultrasound. You know, anything other than that is not informed consent.
Okay, I agree totally. All right. Well, Jeanette, I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. Sorry it was a little sketchy getting you on the program. If my listeners want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, I can be reached by cell phone, 307-222-9747. My website, jw4w.com. That's jwforw.com. I also can be reached on Facebook, X, and Instagram at JWFORW.
All right. Well, Jeanette, I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you again. We'll get the whole video thing figured out next time. But thank you very much for taking the time this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Good luck on your race.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was former Representative Jeanette Ward. She's running for, I guess it's still re-election, but in Casper's House District 57. Now, it's still open line Friday. If you want to weigh in on any of the things that the representative said, the number is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll finish up the program. The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. Thank God it's Friday, and the phone lines are open. 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. I began the program kind of referring to the elitism of some candidates. And there are a lot of them that are running. Well, they've been, on boards and commissions, and, we should listen to them before we should listen to any of we, the little people. But the question is, where does that sort of thinking come from? Well, generally speaking, if you're on, part of the intellectual elite, you end up being on the left side of things. But I think that a lot of that rhetoric tends to come from a higher office. Folks that are, governors and presidents and, not our president, of course, but former presidents and members of Congress. But there is a distinct air of elitism that runs through every election. Pay attention to us. We're the smart ones. We're the adults in the room. We know how to run things, and therefore you should vote for us. And it's a continual thing, my friends. But let me give you an example. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the anointed one, Barack Obama, opened his gigantic Death Star-esque presidential library that cost over $1 billion. He's yet to pay a lot of his contractors. And he's only got the last report I heard is he's only got $1 million in the bank. And there's a whole bunch of contractors that built that thing that haven't been paid. But Breitbart News has got a piece this morning. And there was an interview done at that event, so at the opening of the presidential library, between Ms. Now and Gavin Newsom. And Newsom claimed that many in the Trump administration are just unworthy of their positions. They're just the unwashed masses, and they shouldn't have any sort of position in government. Let me show this to you. So, of course, it's Gavin Newsom, and we all know that, he thinks that he's one of the elites. But listen to this. It's just dripping.
Everybody is down. Let me just quickly say hi. Governor Newsom. Hi, Madam First Lady. I just want to say hi. We're live on MS Now. I just want to say hello real quick. Katie, just 1 second. I'm going to give them a chance to say hello to some folks. Governor, Madam First Lady, it's great to see you both. We're live on MS Now.
How good is that?
Two things. Quick reaction to this, and then you've been very, very forceful in your condemnation of this DOJ investigation. Into both of you, I would love for you guys to both address this and what's happening.
All on contrast today. I mean, I walked up. A couple of people said
it's a total
when they
contrast.
walked upstairs, they said they were crying the whole time, and I looked at them. I said, "I'm good." Got up there, literally started tearing up, and I think everybody feels that spirit and that pride that we've been missing, and we didn't realize how much we've been missing it, and we've been missing it because of the divisiveness. We've been missing it because we have people that frankly are unworthy of their positions, and there we saw on stage people that were worthy of what our founding fathers lived and died for.
What's it like for you to be here today, Madam First Lady?
So joyful, the singing, the dancing, the incredible speeches. They're just incredible role models, and their values are American values, and we need to revive those and provide hope to everybody.
We heard from the governor, but we haven't heard from you yet about this investigation. What do you want to say?
I'm just so grateful for this inspiration and leadership.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Hey, this is stuff that happens in other countries. That's all I'll say. Happens in other countries. Who wants to go after me, go after me.
It's nice to see both of you. Madam First Lady, it's great to see you. Thank you, Governor. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Whatever. It happens in other countries. Yeah. In other countries, people who think they're elite don't get prosecuted. That's what he's referring to. But the point is, my friends, that there is two sets of candidates, in my opinion. There are those that think that they are deserving of office for whatever reason. They're wealthy or they're well connected. It's more often the latter of those. That you have to elect us. We are we're the ones that are worthy. And the folks that the people elect, and think about this, right? So in every election, regardless of who wins, it's the voters that choose. And I would argue, with the exception of the 2020 election, because I'm pretty sure that one was rigged, but with the exception of that one, there has never been an American election that's been wrong. We may not like the person that won the election. We may not agree with their positions, but voters get who they desire. I mean, voters get what they want and, who they vote for. Good, bad, indifferent. But that doesn't make them unworthy. Actually, the truth is, if you get elected, that by definition makes you worthy. And it doesn't matter what station you come from. Now, it just so happens that our president is a very wealthy person, but we've had people elected to office that weren't so wealthy. And think about the folks that get elected to your state legislature. It could be anybody. All it takes is to find a couple donors to help you along your way. And it doesn't matter if you're if you're the guy that just runs a ranch, or you're the business owner, or you're just the normal guy off the street that thinks something is wrong. Look at Spencer Pratt. He absolutely got cheated. I think he got cheated out of that L.A. mayor's race, but he was just a normal guy. Okay, he lives in L.A. A lot of people that live in L.A. have been on TV. He was a reality TV star, but he didn't have any experience in politics to speak of. Well, so this elitism, it's not just that this is what these people say or what they believe or anything like that. There are systems in place to guarantee that those people get into office. Now, one of the most popular episodes that I've done in quite a while was about ranked choice voting. And it was, and I think the episode was Ranked Choice or Open Primaries. I think that's what the title of it was. But that got more views than just about any episode I've done in the last couple of months. Now, if you think that there aren't people in Wyoming that are totally in favor of this, you are sadly mistaken. There are a bunch of folks in this state who would love nothing more than to have ranked choice voting. What ranked choice voting is you go into the voting booth and you've got, 4 candidates, and you rank them 1 through 4. Well, you have multiple rounds of voting, and in the end, it is almost always, the guy in the middle that ends up winning the election. Now, I've got 2 stories here, one of which is from Fox News. This was last week. Well, you know what? Let's go here, and then I'll play the soundbite for you. So this was from last week, but it's entitled "Same Name Candidate Disqualified from Key Senate Race Over Alleged Democrat Scheme to Confuse Voters." And so it's in, Senator Dan Sullivan on the front lines of securing America's Arctic sounds off. It's in Alaska. Here we go. A top Alaska election official booted a same-name Republican challenger to Senator Dan Sullivan from the primary ballot Monday, ruling the campaign appeared designated to confuse voters. Division of Elections Director Carol Beecher disqualified Dan J. Sullivan from the state's hotly contested Senate race over concerns that his candidacy was, quote, filled with a purpose to confuse or mislead and to thereby compromise the ballot's fairness and neutrality. Dan J. Sullivan, a retired schoolteacher who filed as a Republican Senate candidate, despite having no prior affiliation with the GOP, can appeal the ruling. Now, remember, we had that court ruling, the Supreme Court ruling not that long ago that said, hey, look, if you were just registering as a Republican to run in a race, you don't get to do that. That was the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, think about how many politicians in Wyoming do that very thing, run as Republicans, even though all of their policy ideas, all of their beliefs line up with the Democrat Party. Now, the letter caps weeks of outrage from the GOP, who argued the political newcomer's entry into the race just days before the filing deadline was a covert attempt by Democrats to recruit a sham candidate in the race to confuse voters. And the reason why this is particularly important in Alaska is they have ranked choice voting. That's how Lisa Murkowski got elected, if you remember, right? She lost in the primary, and then the first time ranked choice voting was tried for a national office in Alaska, magically she won. I mean, who could have seen that coming? Let's see here. Sarah Palin lost a race for the House in Alaska, and she ended up getting more votes in the first round of voting than any of the others. This is from Alaska Public Media in an article published in June 12, 2022. The Division of Elections counted the first batch of ballots on Saturday night. 109,000 of the 135,000 ballots returned so far. Palin, a Republican, has about 30% of the votes counted so far. She's followed by Nick Beglich, who's a Republican, who also took 19%, and Gross with 12%. So in that election, Sarah Palin was the odds-on favorite. I mean, she had 30% of the vote. The others barely more, not even 20%. The biggest surprise is that Democrat Mary Peltola is in fourth place with 7%. Now, if that holds, she would have to make it to the special election ballot. She's followed by Tara Sweeney with 5% and Santa Claus with 4%. But guess who ended up winning that election because of ranked choice voting? It was the Democrat that won that race. And in the first round of voting, she only had 7% of the vote. And in the first round, Sarah Palin had a huge lead. But because of how the elections are set there, Palin ended up losing, and the Democrat ended up winning, because what happens in ranked choice voting, it is almost always the most liberal candidate. Now, again, I mentioned that if you don't think this is there are people in the Wyoming that think this. Listen to this. This is from that podcast that I mentioned, the ranked choice or open primaries. Take a listen. But don't think that the Redcoats and the Democrats, for that matter, haven't been considering this for quite a while. In the 2021 session, the Senate Corporations Committee was discussing Senate File 145, which was a runoff election bill. The idea behind that was to add an additional election to narrow down the number of candidates to one Republican and one Democrat. The desired result of a runoff election would be that the Republican and Democrat candidate would receive a majority of the vote, and we could all do away with the stupidity of electing a governor with 33% of the vote, or even worse, Matt Meade's 27. During the discussion, the Redcoats brought up ranked choice voting. Here's Senator Brian Boner bringing the subject up.
The more I listen to all the concerns, to include the logistical concerns and the fiscal concerns like we just heard about, what's your thoughts on a ranked choice primary?
He's a Republican, claims to be.
Everybody goes down and says, here's my number one choice, my number two, number three, number four. There's been some discussion of that in general, but you think that would alleviate these concerns without having the increased cost of an extra election?
And then there's Nancy Case. Good old Nancy. Here's what he said.
Mr. Chairman, I have a response for Senator Scott about the ranked choice primary. It was most recently put in Alaska, and it is used in Maine. I had understood that Washington, Oregon had a form of it, or Washington State did, but I guess that's just pending. It's used in a lot of municipal elections, lots of big municipalities, including New York City, and it's been used for Democratic caucuses in 4 states. So it definitely is gaining ground. I think it would be fun to look at whether it'd be cheaper to implement than a separate runoff and yet achieve the same results. The time might be right for it.
This stuff's made in New York City? New York City?
But don't think that the Red... Stop. Yeah, so anyway, there's two Wyoming senators. And now, again, this is back in 2021, but there's 2 Wyoming senators that, while discussing a runoff election bill, which is very, very different than the ranked choice voting, 2 Wyoming senators said, you know what? Maybe we ought to just change this to ranked choice voting. That might be better. I think the time might be right for it. You see, the point is, my point in bringing this up, my friends, is that there are radicals in this state who do want to radically change our election system in favor of one that would entrench almost a permanent redcoat majority, that it favors liberal candidates, that it favors those people on the political left, and that it would almost entirely prevent a conservative from winning. Because the whole purpose of it is to make sure that a conservative candidate does not win. And so a lot of these ideas that you hear from happening in other states, we have this attitude, well, this is just Wyoming. That doesn't happen here. That's not true at all. Those same people exist right here. And given the opportunity, they would totally take advantage of it and try to make sure that the conservatives no longer were able to get the get a foothold in Wyoming government. And I mean, it's again, these folks, they continually are trying to game the system. And that's one of the reasons why the Wyoming legislature years ago passed statutes that the Republican Party could not support or endorse candidates during the primary election. Because if they did, the liberal Republicans wouldn't win. There would be no way, because the Republican Party would say, no, this person over here is not a Republican. That's why that law exists. Now, I do have mixed feelings about it. I'll tell you that, because I think that there would be a tremendous amount of money injected into elections, but that's okay. I mean, I think we're going to have that anyway. But just realize that there are a number of those same people in this state that really do want to radically change how elections are conducted in Wyoming. All right, let's see here. Last piece. This one, I mentioned earlier Obama's Death Star, but really it's not a presidential library so much as it is a monument to himself. Now in Wyoming, we still do that. You have the Steve Harshman Memorial Walkway from the locker room to the football field. We spent $2 million building that. Congratulations, Steve-O. I haven't heard anything about him running for superintendent of public instruction yet, but, I mean, he's Steve Harshman, so, I mean, he's got a plan up his sleeve. So this was from Fox News. This is from the Washington Free Beacon. Obama slams America's fixation on wealth and fame ahead of the star-studded launch party for an $850 million shrine to himself. And I quote, Barack Obama wants the American people to stop caring so much about personal wealth and celebrity status. Speaking at a private stakeholder reception for the $850 million Obama Presidential Center, which opens to the public on Friday, the former president complained that, quote, the salt of the earth bedrock people were being screwed over by nefarious elites consumed by their greed and vanity. Of course, he is not part of that. He just has an $850 million building dedicated to him. Quote, we've got a set of institutions that have fallen victim to the siren song of everything is about money, everything is about attention, everything is about fame, everything is about getting over, Obama said. But meanwhile, there are just a lot of people out here doing the right thing and raising their families and taking care of people. Yeah, like the people that built your edifice to yourself that haven't been paid yet. Is he joking? Because it would be hard to find someone more ill-suited to lecturing Americans about these topics. In a 2010 speech touting financial reform, the former president said that there was, quote, a certain point at which someone has made enough money. He will let us know when he gets there. Since leaving office, Obama and his wife, Michelle, have amassed an estimated net worth approaching $100 million. That includes an extensive real estate portfolio, mansions in Chicago and Washington, D.C., and a waterfront estate on Martha's Vineyard, and a 3-acre compound in Hawaii. The Obamas have accumulated an even greater collection of celebrity chums. On Friday, the Obamas will... Now, remember, he is upset with the salt of the earth people not having access to government, and yet he held a private event, where a whole bunch of elite celebrities were invited. Tom Hanks, Stevie Wonder, the Bushes were there. Obama's friend Steven Spielberg also made an appearance. Valerie Jarrett, the longtime Obama aide who made $740,000 as the CEO of the Obama Foundation, said the star-studded ceremony would inspire people everywhere to believe in the power to bring change home. Remember, it's Hoppity Hoppity Change. Remember that whole song and dance? Despite the scaled-back guest list, a number of celebs who reportedly disinvited for health and safety reasons. Obama's party was a super-spreader event that reeked of the havoc that the glamorous islands-only hospital. It's unclear that the Obamas were seeking to inspire in 2017 when they vacationed on billionaire Richard Branson's private island in the Caribbean, before joining Hanks, Springsteen, and Oprah Winfrey and billionaire David Geffen's super yacht in French Polynesia. You see, these are the elites that I'm referring to, my friends. Those folks who insist on lecturing you that you're unworthy and that the person you voted for is unworthy to be in the Oval Office. So much so that during their ceremony, they went to the tried and true method of claiming that the Obama Center was built on stolen land. Yes, but they built it anyway. From Fox News, an article entitled Obama Center's Opening Ceremony Ridiculed the Far-Left Ritual, ridiculed for a far-left ritual before a star-studded show. Valerie Jarrett, the former senior advisor to Obama when he was president, started out the celebration started it out thusly, and I quote, "We'd like to take a moment to recognize the original inhabitants of the land upon which we are gathered here today. We honor the Anishinaabe and the Council of Three Fires, the Obajiwi, Jiwa, and the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations. Land acknowledgements have been mocked as performative left-wing routines completed to commemorate the Native Americans who once," and I realize that I butchered those names, but it's a left-wing ritual to acknowledge whose land you've stolen. But notice, even though they say, hey, this is all stolen land, they still built the center anyway. It just shows you that all of this stuff that liberals and the redcoats do is nothing but performative politics. And remember, the guy that built this Death Star-esque thing, he's the same one that said this.
If you were successful, somebody along the line gave you some help. There was a great teacher somewhere in your life. Somebody helped to create this unbelievable American system that we had that allowed you to thrive. Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Yeah, you didn't build that. Yeah, that business you've spent your whole life working for. Yeah, that's not you. You didn't do that. But an $850 million monument to himself, yeah, he probably didn't build that either. Of course, well, at least he didn't pay for it. This is the same guy who also said this.
People have been beaten down so long, and they feel so betrayed by government.
Well, it's not surprising then that they get bitter and they cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them.
Yeah, just racist.
A way to explain their frustrations.
Yeah. And of course, let's not forget what old Big Mike had to say, because we have to change everything.
And Barack knows that we are going to have to make sacrifices. We are going to have to change our conversation. We're going to have to change our traditions, our history. We're going to have to move into a different place as a nation to provide the kind of future that we all want desperately for our children.
Yeah, for our children.
And he is the man to do it.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. But we can't forget where the American left comes from, my friends. We constantly, I ran into a bunch of candidates last night at the Third Thursday event who are most definitely on the left. Coming next week, I'm going to show you some of their campaign material. We're going to read stuff that's on their website and show you that really, they're not Republicans at all. And rather, they look at you as if you are unworthy, just like Gavin Newsom, just like Barack Obama. And, they don't think that you deserve to hear what they have to say. Now, I understand coming on a program like this one, that's totally scary, terrifying. Yeah. But you'll notice, even with my interview with Jeanette Ward earlier on in the program, I asked her some tough questions. I gave her the arguments from the other side and made her explain herself. And I think that she did a fair job in answering those. But in refusing to show up for debates, refusing to do interviews, really the only message that you should take from that is you don't deserve to hear from them. And you're just the little people, because that's the message that it sends. Well, my friends, we've pretty much burned up another busy broadcast week on the program. Don't miss Weekend Update tomorrow. Haven't figured out what we're going to talk about, but it'll probably be some sort of state politic related. There's been a lot of stuff happening. Lots of forums where, you know what, you are the little people and you just got to listen to them. Isn't that right, Ken Roberts? Anyway, my friends, that'll do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Have a great weekend. It's Father's Day. Go take your dad out. Go play golf. Go to the shooting range. Go do something with him on Sunday. I'm certainly going to. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, Have a good weekend, my friends.